Okay, brothers and sisters, I want to discuss Revelation chapter 12 and the future of Israel. Some critics of our futuristic views of Bible prophecy say that the New Testament does not speak prophetically about a future national Israel. There is not a single verse in the New Testament that supports the claim that there is a prophetic significance in Israel's restoration as a nation, declares replacement theology. Wow. Replacement theology. Gary something beyond AD 70, Israel as a nation plays no prophetic role. The New Testament only addresses Israel's near destruction, never its distant restoration. While I believe that there are numerous of references, especially in Revelation, that clearly input that a future nation of Israel is doing various things in their land, Revelation chapter 12 is a whole chapter that deals with national Israel during a future time. The woman and the dragon. Who does the woman of Revelation 12 symbolize? And a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. Revelation 12 verse 1. Well, Catholics and many replacement theologies believe that the woman in this passage is the church. Even preterists like Dern realized that the biblical symbols of Genesis 37, 9 to 11 demands it to refer to Israel. Second, however, preterists err in seeing as a reference to Israel in the past, not the future. The sun refers to Jacob, the moon, Rachel, Jacob's wife, and the 12 stars, the sons of Jacob, and the 12 tribes of Israel, Jacob. Verse 2 says, and she was with child, and she cried out, being in labor and in pain to give birth. We see her, the picture of Israel, as a woman experiencing labor pains during the time of the birth of the Messiah at Christ's first coming. Such a picture of Israel was quite common in the Old Testament. 3. Robert Thomason tells us the reference is to the birth of Jesus at his first coming. But technically speaking, this historical event had already occurred when John wrote, so this is a heavenly instrument of that past historical event, just as others parts of this vision are elements of events yet to occur. 4. The next verse says, and another sign appeared in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads were 7 during the fact that verse 3 speaks of heaven, as does verse 1, indicates that we are seeing in this vision an angelic conflict that is being played out throughout the history and its relationship and impact upon Israel, especially during the tribulation. The past conflict set the stage and dramatically tied, which is the basics for understanding the future conflict. Note in verse 6 through 17, the red dragon is unmistakably Satan himself. See Revelation chapter 12 verse 9, 20 verse 2. The 7 heads represent 7 world empires, indicating that they are in the progress of returning their course. As John writes, 5. The 10 horns and 7 diamonds speak of the Antichrist kingdom during the tribulation, as indicated in Daniel chapter 7, verse 7 to 24, and Revelation 13, verse 17. The past conflict between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, is received in verse 4 and 5. A third of the stars, having been swept away by the dragon's tail, informs us that a third of the angels fell and followed Satan in his original revolt. We learn this when we recognize that the stars in the passage are symbols of angels. Compared Revelation 12:7-9. The male child of verse 5 is Jesus the Messiah, who is the seed of the woman and the one that the dragon is really at war with. Petra. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared by God, so that there she might be nursed for 1,260 days. Revelation chapter 12, verse 6. Some Bible commentaries call this event in the middle of the tribulation the second Exodus. See also Matthew chapter 24, 15, 22, where God will miraculously take care of the Jews' remnant in a matter similar to the 40-year Exodus event. The likely place where Israel will go is the ancient first city of Petra in southern Jordan. Some Old Testament passages call the area Brazil. Isaiah 34, 1-7, 63, verse 1-6, Jeremiah 49, 13-14, Micah chapter 2, verse 12, Hebrews 3, verse 3, where the city of Petra was eventually built. Arnold Fruchtenbaum tells us about Petra. Petra is located in the bush with Mount Seir and is totally surrounded by mountains and cliffs. The only way in out of the city is through a narrow passageway that extends for about a mile and can only be navigated by foot or by horseback. This means the city is easy to defend. Petra is shaped like a giant sheepfold with its narrow passage opening up to a special critics surrounded by cliffs. The city of conclude in ancient Edom, southern Jordan, since this area will escape the domination of the Antichrist. It is logical for the Jews to flee to the place. Thus God will provide a city of refuge outside the Antichrist dominion for the fleeing remnant. God versus Satan. The historical conflict between Christ and Satan reaches a climax in heaven, where Satan and his demons are cast out of heaven to the earth at the midpoint of the 7-year tribulation period. Revelation 12, verse 7-12. Satan defeated is first implemented in heaven by Michael and his angels in preparing for the final defeat of the dragon on earth 3.5 years later at the second coming. Revelation chapter 20, verse 1-3. What is Satan's response to being cast down to the earth? Just like in the movies, When the bad guys cannot defeat the scenario himself, they go after his wife and children. Since Satan cannot defeat God in direct combat when he is cast down to the earth, he attacks his children, and in this case he goes after the Jewish remnant. And when the dragon saw that he was thrown down to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. Revelation 12 verse 13. This will result in the greater time of persecution against the Jews in the history of the scene. Satan will be on planet Earth directing it himself. Why is persecuting of the Jews so important to Satan? Since Revelation chapter 12 is a chapter dealing with the issue of the great struggle between God and Satan, with a focus on the future, we see the outworking of Satan's final effort to defeat God, which is prevent the second coming. Since the second advent cannot occur until the Jewish nation is converted to Messiah and calls on him to rescue them, Satan attempts to indicate the Jewish people in his attempt to prevent it from happening. Satan believes that if he can prevent God's predestined plan from unfolding, then he will have defamed him. However, it is not going to happen. Head for the hills. What is God's response to Satan's persecution of his people? And the two wings of the great eagle were given to the woman in order that she might fly into the wilderness of her place, where she was nursed for a time and half a time, from the presence of the serpent. Revelation 12 verse 14. God will protect the remnant supernaturally, as noted by the pause. Two wings of a great eagle. This is a figure of speech used in the Exodus 19 verse 4, Deuteronomy 32 verse 10 to 11, to speak of God's divine intervention as the Jews leave Jerusalem and the surrounding areas are protected in Petra. Satan launches an effort to track down the Jewish people, but God's protection overcomes his efforts, and the serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman, so that he might cause her to be swept away with the flood. Revelation 12 verse 15. In context, it appears that Satan pouring out water like a river from his mouth after the woman is a metaphor for military pursuit. He sends out his army to search for the Jewish people who are in hiding. The intent of his pursuit is to destroy the Jews as stated in the figure of speech, so that he might cause her to be swept away with the flood. In spite of Satan's great effort, God hides and protects his people, and the earth helped. In spite of Satan's greatest effort, God hides and protects his people, and the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and drank up the river which the dragon poured out his mouth. God used the Regan train of the wilderness to contract Satan's effort at destroying the Jewish remnant. Satan gives up his search, and his anger goes after other Jewish believers, likely the 144,000 Jewish witnesses, Revelation 7, 1 to 8 to 14 to 1 to 3, who are scattered across the globe. Conclusion. Not only are there references to the future of Israel in the New Testament, the future destiny of the nation is outlined in great detail in Revelation 12 and also found in other passages throughout the final book of the Bible. When we realize that Israel has already become a nation that is generally in unbelief toward Christ, and that verily the whole world is already anti-Israel, it is not hard to realize that the Lord is setting the stage for tribulation events that will focus on that tiny nation that the Lord loves. Many comparisons are being made today between the conditions in the Muslim world and the military of Nazi toward the Jews in the 1930s. At the end of the day, Revelation 12 teaches us that it is a fight between God and Satan. Maranatha. Thank you all for watching, and may God bless you. God bless.